Howdy Warriors, it's week 3 for Technical and Professional Communications in Aviation. Let's just jump right in. I'm going to start our slideshow. I forgot how to do it. Oh, I'm having a hard time. Howdy Warriors, it's week 3 for Technical and Professional Communication in Aviation. So let's just jump right in, shall we? Alright. Here we are, week 3. We're going to talk about short communications. It's a fairly short lecture to go with it. We're going to be talking, we'll just get set up with some first words about the subject, and then we've got a little section on I versus you language, good news and bad news delivery. Spend the bulk of our time on emails, and then a couple of short notes about memos and letters. Let's dive in, shall we? So, previously we've learned that you're going to, as the writer, you're going to define the purpose for the technical writing that you're performing. You're going to define your topic. Then you're going to define your target audience. And once we know all these things, that should suggest the kind of content we're going to develop. So let's assume we've gone through that process, and you can take a look at figure 2-6 from last week that will show you a flow chart. And take a look right now. Hit pause. Go take a look at what comes up as a short communication. What kind of situations would arise that would suggest that you use a short communication. Those short communications are email, memos, and letters. In today's society, email is the most predominant one of those. Okay. So short communications are useful for telling something or asking for something that's not very complicated. That's why they're short. They're going to need to be simple as a result. Otherwise, they become not short. They get very long the more complex they get. They need to be efficient. We're not going to take too much time. We're not going to ask somebody to spend too much time digesting this short communication. They should stick to one topic. That also helps keep them short, right? If you got multiple things to cover in emails, send multiple emails. That's going to be a big theme today. They should be professional. Just because they're short little communication pieces doesn't mean that you're not representing yourself and the company. Whether that's an internal or external audience, it really shouldn't matter. And then they should be complete. They should make sense. When someone is done reading this short communication, they should either understand what you tried to tell them, or they should be given all the information they need so they can respond to the ask that you're giving to them. Always in our communication pieces, not just the short ones, we're trying to build a connection between the writer and the audience. That's how you get that information across, or you get that ask done. What helps is to have a reader-centered point of view. It's very useful for this, right? People don't want to hear about you. They want to hear about themselves. It's just natural. So it demonstrates that you value your audience when you put things in a perspective that's centered around the reader and the reader's experience of the information, right? That sometimes means that you give them all the facts. You may fully understand something, but maybe they don't. So you make sure that you sort of put their eyes and ears on as you're writing, and make sure that you're going to answer questions that they may have before they even arise. It really helps. Demonstrates that you understand their concerns or needs. That's kind of what I just said. And it does play to the human tendency towards self-interest, right? There's nothing wrong with that when we're trying to get something done. So the only time you really pull into the I statements, it's if you're taking responsibility for something. You're writing that kind of an email. Where you need to take responsibility for an action or an inaction, you're trying to set something right, that is a time that it's appropriate to talk about yourself, but you still should remember to keep some of that in the context of how it affected the reader, which kind of leads to good news and bad news. So most professional communication is going to be neutral, right? It's neither good nor bad. I just need you to know this, or I need to ask you to do something for me. Giving people good news is usually not very difficult, though you'd be surprised. Something you think is good news may not be good news to someone else. It may be neutral, may be bad. They may be skeptical. They may need to sit with it a little while before they decide that it's good news. So just be mindful of that. Bad news is a lot harder to communicate, especially when your goal is that the recipient still feels recognized and valued. Maybe if you're firing someone, it might be a little easier to deliver that bad news. Even then, I would hope that you're still treating them with some respect and dignity, and not just throwing them a note that says you're fired. Okay. A carefully crafted message is going to be the key here. Find a way to include something positive in the message that you're giving them, even though you are ultimately delivering them some bad news. Some people call that the sandwich method, right? That's when you have some bad news. I've got some bad news to deliver to you, but you sandwich that bad news with either side with a positive statement. Now, that does not mean make stuff up. Okay, it needs to be genuine. It needs to communicate that you actually know and understand the person, that you really do value them. Use something specific, not just, you're great, here's the bad news, oh, by the way, you're great. That's going to do more damage, actually, than just giving them the bad news straight up. Okay, so done well, a bad news communication can help your reader feel more valued and positive in the end, even though they just got bad news. All right, let's talk about emails. Phone calls are convenient, right? But only if both parties are available. That's kind of rare, especially when we're talking about the aviation environment. Not everybody's just sitting at a desk waiting to pick up a phone. So emails are a great way to communicate. What I love about them, I much prefer, honestly, to get an email than to get a phone call, and God forbid a voicemail. The email allows me or you to respond thoughtfully when you're best able to focus on the message. I may be distracted by 400 other things over here, and you call me, you may not have my full attention. You send me an email, and I can prioritize that and wait for a time when I can really think about it and respond in a thoughtful way. Okay, so they also, critical, provide a written record of the conversation. That's extremely useful. And even though they are easy to use, you should still professionally communicate in a professional way, and the email should be written accordingly, right? You need to take the time to make them sound professional. Okay, here's a little list of my pet peeves on email: incomplete sentences and poor punctuation, bad spelling. Right? This is not a text, and this is not a text to your best friend trying to figure out what you're going to do tonight. It's still a professional communication tool. So those first three are forbidden. Don't ever send emails that have those traits. Okay, incomplete information is also very frustrating. If you're asking me to do something, I need all the information so I can act on it. Sometimes use of jargon with no explanation is bad. A lot of abbreviated stuff in aviation. We have tons of abbreviations. First time you're having a conversation with someone, especially if you don't know them that well, or you don't know if they know for certain what that abbreviation stands for, spell it out first and then put it in parentheses, like Certified Flight Instructor, and then in parentheses, CFI. I have to do that a lot with the flight school at TSDC, where I work, when I'm dealing with people outside of the flight school that I need to reference what a CFI does. So I really try hard to make sure that I spell it out first. And then I put it in parentheses, and throughout the rest of the document, I'll just refer to the abbreviated letters. All right, incomplete answers or requests. No links to reference information. That makes me nuts. Hey, I need you to do this thing. I need you to fill out this form. And then they don't attach the form, or they don't provide a link to where I can get the form. Now it's up to me to go find it. It's very discourteous. It makes me want to not do it. So if you're going to do an ask for somebody, make sure you're providing them everything they need to get it done fast. Your goal is to get that piece of information or whatever the task is back to you as soon as you can. Make it easy for them, right? Don't make them think about it or have to go somewhere else to get that. A little extra time on your part is going to make their response time a lot faster. Okay. Also, drives me crazy, no contact info or title at the end. Sometimes I need to reference you to someone else, and I want to reference you professionally. And if you just say, -Steve at the end of your email, then I don't know your exact title. And now I've got to go look that up so I can get it right. Always put that in there. Makes it very helpful. All right, there's a million other things. Let's talk about formatting paragraphs, okay? So we're going to use left justification. It's kind of automatic in most email. That's where it's lined up on the left side of the page. Email, not like a piece of paper. If I have a huge monitor, it'll put everything on one line way out to the end of the screen, and then it'll pull back and it'll start writing the next line. So it's not too hard to make sure everything's left justified But just for an example, that's what right justified would be, off to the right side of the screen. Or, yeah, for an email on the screen. It needs to be concise. People will not read huge chunks of text. If you throw a wall of text at them, it's not going to get read. It might get skimmed, but it's not going to be a very effective tool. All right, so keep it to 4 or 5 paragraphs at the most on an email. If it's longer than that, it's time to write a report. We'll talk about that later in the semester. But you're going to attach that report, and then you're going to give them a summary in less than 4 or 5 paragraphs of what's in the report. And that helps them decide if it's time to read the report now, or if it's something that they can wait and prioritize for later. You're going to put spaces between the paragraphs. That helps your eye know when you've moved from one thought to the next. And seeing that helps your brain recognize it. So let's take a look at some text over here. This is a type of text called lorem ipsum. It always starts with those 2 words, but it's a random text generator. It kind of sounds like Latin, but it's not really. It's just a bunch of nonsense words. We use this in graphic design just to fill space before we actually put the content in. So let's take a look at our list here. Left justified, that means it's always, all the words on the left are going to line up. This one happens to be full justified, where it also lines up on the right. Take note. It makes weird spacing in the middle. You got huge gaps here, and you got tiny gaps up here. That's not great. It's kind of hard to read. The reason why you see this sometimes is you've got an entire newspaper page, and it does help you tell which article belongs to which column. But it's not great. It's definitely not great for an email. So first off, let's fix that. Let's go left justified. That's a little better. Now all the spaces in between are the same. It's easier on your brain to skim through those words, as speed read through it if it's spaced better like that. Now, still we have just one giant thought here. One sentence goes to the next, goes to the next, goes to the next. That's not good email etiquette. Let's put each thought or each paragraph, let's have a little carriage return here where we go and we start a new line, even if we're in the middle of the line across the page. Now I can see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 thoughts going on here. Still a little run together, so I'm also going to do my reader a favor and put a full space between each paragraph. Now it's much easier for me to see where the thoughts start and stop and chunk that information down and digest it a whole lot easier. So this is what you're looking for when you're writing in an email. Let's talk about email addresses. So a lot of companies will assign your email address or organizations, so it's usually not an issue. If you're striking out on your own and starting a company, though, or if you have the opportunity to create your own email address at work, or if you're looking for a job and you're using a personal email, you might want to consider creating a professional email address if your current email is a little, shall we say, less than professional. What does that mean? That means a pretty typical format is firstname.lastname@company.com. My email address here is kelly.filgo@tamuct.edu, right? Very straightforward method for having an email address. Professional, looks great. Some places will do first, middle, initial, and then last name at company.com. That's okay. Avoid references in your little name side on the left side of the @ to drugs, sex, hobbies, sports, religion even, politics, etc. Anything that could distance you from your reader, okay? That's not like hiding who you are. What's that is doing is it's not putting something in the way between you and your professional communication to your target audience, okay? If you're feeling brave at home, just Google bad email addresses, all right? And there's some very entertaining and eye-popping examples. I am not going to put those on this document because this is a professional document, but if you're a brave sort of person, then feel free to go look that up. So this also circles, well, I just kind of said this circles back to the I versus you topic, right? You don't want your email address, the first thing they see when they see they have an email, to be off-putting, okay? So just be careful about that. Let's talk about subject lines. Use them, all right? I think some email clients won't let you send unless you use them. But use them effectively, I guess is what I mean there. It's like a headline. You need to help busy people prioritizing reading your email. Don't just say, I need something. or I have a question. Keep it short, but be a little more specific than that. I have a question about inventory that's due next week. Okay, that allows them to say, okay, it's something that he needs to do, but he doesn't maybe need it right now. You're actually more likely to get read and acted upon, even if they delay acting, if you give them useful information in that subject line. Very, very important. But don't make it sound like clickbait, right? 7 things you need to know about the shift hand down. Number 6 will shock you, right? We don't want to do that. Okay. Good keywords in the subject also help when you search old emails, right? Don't ever delete your work emails. Archive them, right? There's tons of storage. Storage is cheap. I have 8 years worth of emails archived at my day job. That way I can go back and search. And if I use good keywords in my subject lines, I will be able to find what I need quickly. All right, it's like a filing cabinet. And also, please stick to the subject. Do not cover multiple topics in one email. It drives me crazy when people do that. Send separate covers, right? Because what's going to happen is nope, that's the next slide down. Let's talk about your salutation. I was about to talk about email threads. We'll get to there. So salutation is your greeting, like you would do in a letter. So your familiarity with the subject is going to determine how formal you should be. If it's someone you work with every day, you just say hey or hi or Steve, or sometimes you don't even say anything. You just go right into your copy. It's best to say something. Avoid time of day references in the salutation, right? If you say good morning and they don't see it until late afternoon, it could be a little off-putting. Like the person who gets that email might think, well, gosh, this person thinks I just sit around waiting for their emails, to come in. How dare they assume I would open it as soon as I get it? So it's a chance to be a little off-putting. So try and avoid that. Now, after the first round of replies, it's okay to be a little more informal or remove your salutations entirely, like I said. Sort of follow the lead of your audience, though. Wait for them to change the tone. I keep mine, Mr. This, Ms. That. And then when they start referring back to me by my first name, then I'll start referring back to them by their first name. It's just a courtesy. Again, that's a you-centered approach to writing email. It's similar to the air traffic control, waiting to abbreviate your identifier. If you call in with your full IN number and they respond back with the full IN number, you're not allowed to abbreviate that. I used to fly an aircraft with 388 uniform. I call it air traffic control. It's Cessna 388 uniform, blah, blah, blah. They'd come back. If they came back with an 88 uniform, then from that point on, I could now refer to myself in the abbreviated form. Follow the same thing with your emails. It's very courteous, and it's centered on your intended audience. Oh, also, pro tip, don't assume the gender of the recipient, please. If they have a gender-neutral name, I know this, kelly.filgo@tsdc.edu or kelly.filgo@tamuct.edu. I get called Mrs. all the time, and that's another one. Even if you do know that the person you're sending the email to is female, if you don't know that they go by Mrs., type Ms. in S. It is a respectful, polite thing to do. They may not be married. So by calling them Mrs., you're, again, giving them a chance to get a little off-put before they even get to your message. So be careful in that. You're going to have to figure out how you're going to solve that problem. Maybe a little LinkedIn research before you send that email if you don't know if they're male or female. All right. Let's talk about threaded emails now. So that's a series of replies to the same original email. It's great for developing conversation, right? You follow A, B, person A, person B, person A, person B. They get a little clouded when there's multiple people, so avoid those if you can. If you've got people A through E and they all are contributing and they're all hitting reply all every time, it can get very complicated very fast. So always be sure and reply at the top of the message box, right? They stack on top of each other. If you read down, you can follow the conversation going backwards. And if you're referencing something from below, copy and paste it back up so they don't have to go hunt for it. Or if someone asks you 4 or 5 questions in a row, copy and paste those questions, put them in your new email response, and then answer those as they go. Okay? That's just courteous. Makes it easier on the recipient. Don't keep replying forever. If you've gotten 4 or 5, half a dozen back and forth responses into an email thread, call it off, have a meeting, and get that thing done. It's more complicated than an email can handle if you're having to go back and forth that often. And then, again, I'll say it again, never move to a new topic in an email thread. Start it over with a new email, with a new subject heading that is specific and informative, and you will have a much better response from your recipients. Okay, the closing of your emails. So less formal emails, people you already know or work with all the time. Thanks, have a good day, something like that. So more formal emails should be professional, respectfully, so-and-so, best regards, so-and-so, sincerely, so-and-so. Just follow those rules. Again, until the other person starts treating you with less formal, a welcome, less formal approach, then just keep the formalities going. Let them decide when it's time to be a little more informal. Use a standard signature block. I mentioned this earlier. Your full signature name, how you would sign something. Mine is Kelly M. Filgo. The title that you have, the company, a physical mailing address, email address, office phone or phones, depending on how many you have. I don't know if anyone uses fax machines anymore. If you do, I guess include that one. But I'm thinking more like your office phone and your cell phone if you use it for work. And then if you have a nickname that you want people to use, and very important, and it's professional sounding, you can imagine nicknames that aren't. I don't have to go there. Go ahead and put it in the full signature name. I don't know. James, quote, Jamie Smith. Okay. Or something, or Jake, or whatever. If it's a nickname that you want them to use and it's suitable for work, go ahead and put that in that full signature name at the bottom. It's helpful. Okay. Let's talk about CCs and BCCs. All right, CC comes from old carbon copies of memos. The boss puts out a memo to the company, wants to make sure the vice president and the, 2 or 3 other people get a copy of it. They'll be CC'd and then named on that memo as to who else got a copy of it. Same thing happens in your address line on your email. You can send it specifically to several people, but then you can also CC to people underneath that. BCC means blind carbon copy. The same memo goes out or the same email goes out, but it's to a private list. No one else will see who is on that list. All right, so use a CC for the people who need to be aware that something's going on, be aware of the information or the conversation that's happening, but they don't necessarily need to act on it right away, right? People who you want to act on it need to be in the main invitation line. But the people who should be aware, like maybe a boss one or two levels removed, who wants to know what's going on, drop them in the CC. That helps them prioritize the email and shows them that you don't expect a direct response. Now the BCC, you can use that for emails that go to a group that may not want their email addresses shared, or a large group of people like the entire company, and none of whom need to respond, right? So, pro tip, don't hit reply all to company-wide emails. Happens at least 2 or 3 times a week, and it's maddening. Okay, so nobody likes that person. All right, don't be the person who fills up everyone else's email with, answering, okay, I'll be there, when everyone in the company got a meeting, request or something like that. Don't be that person. All right. Still have one more little thing. Proofreading. Proofreading is very important. Take time to carefully go over your email before hitting send, right? You don't want any of those embarrassing typos or incomplete sentences or confusing sentences. Read it from the perspective of the person who's about to receive it, right? So at minimum, your spelling and grammar errors are going to convey a lack of accuracy or discipline, making it easier for the person to ignore your email. You also risk alienating your audience and missing a chance to influence them. So why would you do that? This is very necessary when you're using a cell phone, especially if you use swipe and predictive text or autocorrect to send an email or other electronic short message. If you're using that phone, and a lot of people do, you're sitting there swiping your thumb around, it's very easy to misspell things, okay? Or the phone assumes that you want it, you're talking about one word and it predicts it, and you don't realize you entered the wrong word. That can be very damaging. And also, if you say you're going to include attachment, double check before you send that you actually included the attachment. Many email clients these days are smart enough that if you use the word attachment in the email and there's not one, it'll flag up there, which is very great. That saves me a lot of the time. But make sure if you have an attachment, go ahead and get it included. Okay. All right. Your memos and letters. So memos, short for memorandum. This is what we used to send instead of emails. Okay, to everybody. This would be a BCC kind of thing. Conveys a simple but important message to a group of people. It's usually posted in high traffic areas where people will see them, right? You ever see some sort of semi-passive aggressive note taped to the fridge about eating other people's meals or cleaning up after yourself because your mother doesn't work here? That's a form of memo. It's not a very good form of memo, but it is one. Should you also be used sparingly because they're going to get ignored if there are too many, right? The more notes on the refrigerator, the less likely they are to get heated. Okay. Also, you're going to use proper formatting for maximum impact. The text has a great little worksheet on that. All right. Where do we go? There we go. There's plenty of examples in the text. Okay. Letters. Formal company letters can command attention because of their rarity, right? This is like a legal letter, right? Or a letter from the IRS. They convey a sense of importance. Someone spent the time to actually type up, sign, seal up, and mail a letter. Must be important. A lot of legal documents are sent in letter format. Just mentioned that. And company letters should be on letterhead paper to give them authenticity. If you just grab a sheet of paper out of the printer and either handwrite or type up and then sign a letter, if it's just on blank white paper, it's not the same thing as having it on like a heavy stock paper that's from the company. It's got company logo. That tends to lend the power of that company behind your message. Okay, and also really sign it is very important. And it lends that authority to the document. Okay, that's really all we have this week. Push myself back up here. So if you have any questions about that, send me an email. Take a look at the instructions in the module for week 3 for our project this week. It's going to vary a little bit from the original syllabus. I'm going to tweak it just a little bit, but that's okay. And it's more project-based. There's probably not going to be a ton of back and forth on the discussion board, and that'll be okay. I'll leave a note for that on the module. Okay? Y'all have a good rest of your day.